Hello, my name is Dan from Circuits Automated System Solutions, and I'm here today to demo a program called PenLathe. PenLathe is a program where you can design pans and seam rippers and pretty much anything you can do in a lathe that uses square material and in a very easy fashion and very inexpensive. I used to use an expensive program to do some of the stuff, but it had way too many features in it for me, so we wrote this to support a need. It's going to be very inexpensive. You can purchase it from circuits.com website. And I'm going to go through right from the installation process on. To install it, we downloaded this, which you could download for free, and just select all the standard things. You can download it for free and play with it, execute it. You cannot save pen projects, and you can't export CNC files until you actually pay for it and receive an email registration code that you can use to register the program. It does create a desktop icon, which I'm going to click on here, PenLathe. Bring to the screen. Okay, this is the main program. I'm going to maximize it here so you get the full benefit of it. What you're seeing here is you're seeing a center line, which is where your mandrel will be running through the pens. We zoom out a little bit. Mandrel. And you're seeing three mandrels or bushings or collets, three collets or bushings. Whatever you prefer to call them, I call them collets, that are used to hold the square stock. In this case, there are two of them. This will do a 2 and 3 collet setup. I'm going to go change it to 2 so that it makes it look easier when you're doing a drawing for this demo purpose. I will show how to use a 3 collet at the end, but I'm going to go to a 2 collet here, and what we have here are dimensions. Now I have millimeters here, but all this program works in inches. Millimeters I use because I need it to set up. I do it in millimeters, and I call it the diameter and the length. The length of the collets are the collet that is outside of the material. It doesn't include the length of the collet sticking inside the material to hold it in place. And the diameter is just the diameter of the collet. 0.00 on the machine is going to be the top right-hand side of the left collet, and then the x-axis moves in the right direction, the y-axis positive moves in the up direction. So when the program starts, it's going to start up above the material. And this is our material dimensions. For here, 3/4 of an inch stock, and this one happens to be 4 inches long. The Cnc Settings, this program outputs 2 different CNC files, one called CNC Rounding and one called CNC Contour. It's recommended to do a rounding first at all times. That way you can do a whole lot of roundings and then put it on and start doing any contouring that you want. You can do it all with just a contouring file, but you have to play with the Z safe zone at it to make sure you've got enough safe zone to accommodate the diagonal height of the material. So, keeping that in mind, this X adder for the rounding, I have it set to 1/8 of an inch, is the cut where it's going to start. It's going to start 1/8 of an inch off of the material and then start cutting across and go to 1/8 of an inch off the other side. When most people do their stock, they cut their stock and then they drill down into the edge of the stock to flatten it against the brass tube, which leaves a little bit out for here that will be cut off with rounding. So that's why this has this extra setting. The safe zone is how far above, in the rounding setting, how far above the diagonal of the material you want to actually start out the cut. This accounts for any issues with the material stock not being square, so you can increase this or lower to your will. This is the cut depth. Every pass is going to cut 0.01 down. You can change this as well if your cutter is a better cutter than what I use. I like to do my things very fine. The feed rate is 5. This is the same feed rate you would find in Mark III settings for inches. The rewind offset is when we rewind the x-axis from right to left, we're going to move up off the material 0.1 inches, and then we're going to move as fast as we can to 120 over to the left to start our next cut pass. And the settings are all the same for the contouring, except for there's no X and Y adder. It always starts wherever your first point is. And that makes a difference. Your first point can be right at the 0, 0 of the collet, or you can move it up just a little bit, 0.02, so that you have a little bit of sanding room. But that's completely up to you. And we save it. So on the toolbar we can create new projects, open file. When you create a new project, it will use all those same settings in the settings box that are already there as a default. It does not have any canned default. So you can set up a project called a template with certain material and color sizes and just open that up and then do a save as. Okay, these are to open up existing pen files. This is brings up that project settings. Most of these you can all do from all these menu items. There's a help, the CHM help file, PDF that you can print, tools. You can select the selection tool, draw tool. Those are over here to the left, as well as icons, selection and draw. And then you can zoom in, zoom out, etc. This is how we export CNC files. You can export both a rounding file or just a rounding or just a contour. It's easy just to do both. Zoom in, out, and then zoom back to a 1:1 scale, which is basically what 100 pixels on the screen is 1 inch. This is something called quantize. I'll explain that in a little bit. And this is quantized value. And this is an undo. There are 10 levels of undo in here. And that's exit. So let's get started here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And I'm going to draw. When you first bring up this, it starts up in draw mode. So I'm just going to draw a basic shaper. Okay, so I'm going to, alright. It didn't start exactly where I wanted it, but that's okay. We can move that around. And I'm just going to put some stuff in here just to get a design. Alright. And then to exit it, I can hit the right mouse button or escape key, which I'll do, and it immediately switches from the draw to the selection tool. Now I can grab a point and drag that point wherever I want. Okay, so there's kind of an interesting looking pen design. Explaining this box, the outer green, the inside pink is actually your material diameter. That's the width of the material square. The pink is the diagonal. So that's where the diagonal would be. So if you were doing a rounding toolpath, it would be starting up here someplace. These values over here, the rulers, are just for viewing, so that you have some kind of a reference as to what size you're looking at here. If you actually looked at this from here to here, it would be 3/4 of an inch. So what I want to do is I want to take this point, and it's a right-hand menu. I can either select this point and delete it, or I can select a point and maybe insert a point after this. It's always after it, and right in the center. So you can do some interesting things here, move points around or whatever. Okay, so let's just leave it there. But I'm going to select this point. I'm going to move this to the left bushing. And when you move it to the left bushing, it always puts it right to the top left-hand side of that bushing. And I'm going to do the same thing with the right point, but I'm going to move this one to the right bushing. If it was a 3-color job, you can select the center bushing left and the center bushing right. So here we have a pen design, and we need to do something with this, because if we change the view to look at a line type of linear, that's what the cut path in Mach 3 would look like, or in the G code. It's just a linear point to point, which doesn't look very impressive. So if we go back to line type curve and we quantize this value here 10 is how much space in between points we want, and the lower the number, the better. So the more fine. So let's start with 10. So that's what this would look like. And if we went to line type of linear, you see all these straight lines, and that doesn't look too bad, but it's still not exactly what I want. So we're going to undo that quantize, and I'm going to change the value to 5. Then I'm going to quantize it. Now, if you notice, there's a lot more points here. Alright, so that looks better. Well, there's something I didn't do that I should have done at the beginning. I'm going to do it now because it's easier. I'm going to undo the quantize. I'm going to select this point that I put to the left collar, and I need a little bit of room for sanding. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to move it to a relative position. And I'm going to move it up 0.02 inches. and that just moved it up just a little bit, so it's just up off the collet. Gives me some room to stand, so it doesn't go right down to the corner. And I'm going to do the same thing with the right one. Okay. Like the curve line type. All right, so now I'm going to quantize it to 5, and there's my pen design. So I'm going to export it. So I create a file, or I've already set up a folder on my desktop called test pen, so I'm going to export it to here. Test pen. And it tells me that it's completed it. And if I wanted to save this, I could save this file as another test. You can see I've got pens in here. There are some example pens. And now let's go take a look at what the files look like. Test pen. Now here's where I saved it. Here's the rounding file. The variables are going to be up in here. And you can see my X start is going to be an 1/8 of an inch to the left of the 0, 0 point, and my end is an 1/8 of an inch to the right. This is my safe start position. That's where it's going to start up above the y-axis, and that's the last point where it's going to end. I'm going to be decrementing 0.01. I'm going to rewind up off the part 0.1 inches, and here's my 2 feed rates. So this runs on Mach 3. I do have a spindle speed and spindle on here. You can edit these if you'd like. If you don't use them, it doesn't make a difference. So that's the rounding. The contour file looks very similar. The only difference is at the bottom you'll see a single contour cut pass. This is the contouring cut pass. And if you notice here, it starts at 0.02, which is up off the material just slightly, and it ends at 0.02, which is just up the material just slightly. And that was based on me moving the point around. And what this does is it'll stop at the Y safe zone. It'll just gradually decrement this number 10 down, and it'll just keep cutting linear pass until it gets to the last pass, and then it's done. So that's basically this program in a nutshell. What I'm going to do is show you a 3 collet. So I'm going to set up a new project. I'm going to do a 3 collet because there's you have to do something special with a 3 collet design. All right. Here's my 2 collets. So I'm just going to draw a quick path in here. I'm not going to do too much with it. Bring it up, bring it across, bring it down to here, bring it across. I'm going to put a point up here. Point here. Point here. Let's move over a little bit. Oh well. I'll delete that point in a second. Yeah, it's a little strange, doesn't it? I end it. I'm going to select the point. Delete it. Okay, so what I wanted to show you here is that the one of the important pieces here is when you do these points here, move to center bushing left and move to center bushing right, and you move up off it a little bit if you want some standing room. Move relative position 2 and move relative position 2. Now when I quantize this, the reason I did this was so that we move up off the machine, because it's going to do this entire thing in one pass. Alright, now I have a view here. And you could double check to make sure that none of the points drop below the line. You don't want this cutting into any deeper in the material. If it does, you can simply remove some of them, hit delete. Remove some of them, hit delete. So what I'm doing is fine-tuning what I want it to do when it gets to the collet. I don't need all these points in the middle, and I don't need all these points. I just need something up above to manipulate. So I'm just deleting this to fine-tune this. And if I looked at what would happen here, It looks like it's going to drop down here, but it's not going to. If I view this in line type linear mode, you can see it's not going to hit anything. And I can fine tune any of these points that I want. If I want to move this up, I can select it, move it. Or if I want to delete it, move it a little. So I can fine tune exactly what I want to happen in this area. And that's all I wanted to show you here. And then you just do the same thing. You do an export, you do a rounding toolpath, and you do this. I don't need to come that far up above the material, though, especially if I've done a rounding toolpath. I can bring it down and bring them both down. That's just above the material height. And that should be all I need. So it's going to cut along this path, and it's going to go up to this point, cut across, come down, and come across. And that I could save as well. And I hope you enjoyed the demo, and share some of your pen designs with me. Thank you very much. Exit.